A neighborhood that consists entirely of floating houses. Is this a model for the future? We'll see more of those floating houses later in the show. And with that, a warm welcome to a new episode of Euromaxx. Here's what else we have lined up for you today. The unique fragrance of the damask rose, and the amazing works of Danish glass artist Stefan Dahm. But first we visit a new housing concept in the Netherlands that could set an example for other countries the world over. Climate change and rising sea levels are making headlines everywhere. So what are people doing in the Netherlands, where a quarter of the country already lies under sea level? Some architects in Amsterdam thought it would make sense if houses could float.
Living on water in the city centre. One day, more than 100 people will live on this side canal in Amsterdam. Marcus Schmidt and his wife Yvonne van Zaak are among the first residents.
It's a different way of life here. All this light, the water sparkles and reflects everywhere.
Exactly. It actually seems more extreme.
And somehow, you're closer to nature. When the wind blows and you open the door, a gust of wind will come rushing into your face. So everything arrives pretty directly here.
Their house is one of a total of 30 buildings which are part of the project Strip Amsterdam. Each building has its own design. But they all have one thing in common. They float on special concrete rafts fastened onto pillars. The swimming foundation needs to be able to carry several hundred tons and must therefore be balanced precisely by architects like Jorrit Howard.
Up front, you have to calculate everything that you put on the boat, how heavy it will be. Because if you put in too much weight, it will be too low, and then the water starts to come in. So that's why we make a lot of calculations up front, how heavy the boat will be in the end.
20 different architects were involved in the project. The houses were built on land and then brought to the dock by boat. Sustainability is particularly important to the inhabitants. Schrontrip translates into clean ship.
What we wanted to achieve is to show that you can live on water with very sustainable houses, and in a sustainable way in the sense that we as a community. So we had very high levels of what we wanted to show to Amsterdam and to the world actually.
Like all the buildings, Per de Rijk's house is supplied with self-produced solar power. Sustainable and eco-friendly materials were used for the houses. The facade of de Rijk's is made from cork.
We had loads of discussions with the whole group, and we had help from different advisors on materials. So we ended up with a list, a green list, an orange list and a red list. Red list was a no-go. Orange was okay if you really have to because of cost reasons or technical reasons, but preferably try to use only materials from the green list. So cork was on the green list, and we liked it very much, so that was our choice to do so.
Living on water has a long tradition in Amsterdam. Houseboats can be seen on almost every canal. One of the first floating districts was built a couple of years ago in the district of Ijborg. 50 houses on artificial islands. Now the trend is arriving in other European cities. In London, for example, where British architects Bakker are planning floating homes in the Royal Docks. Copenhagen has responded to a lack of affordable student housing with the so-called urban rigger, 12 floating houses designed by star architect Bjarke Engels. Bjarke Engels doesn't shy away from even greater visions, a floating city for 10,000 people in regions threatened by climate change. In Amsterdam, demand is on the rise too.
I think there's a really big potential on building on water. We see we have some requests from all over the world, from New York, who's looking to live on the water, Baltimore. In the Netherlands, there are several areas where they are building houses and communities, over 50 to 100 to 200 houses even.
For Yvonne van Zaak and Marcus Schmidt, this vision has become a reality. 150 square metres, 2 floors, a roof garden, almost like a house in the countryside. But there is one difference. Their home sways.
It was a little weird at first.
I haven't felt sick yet, but I did have a day where I thought, I need to set foot on some solid ground. But it's a small price to pay for their dream of living on water.
Roses like this one are admired not only for their beauty, but also for their powerful fragrance. It can be found in countless perfumes. And the damask rose produces the most expensive rose oil in the world. And it's harvested just once a year in Bulgaria's Valley of Roses.
Bulgaria's Valley of Roses lies nestled between the Srebna Gora and Balkan Mountains' southern slopes. For hundreds of years, damask roses have been flourishing here. Abundant rain in winter, sun in spring and summer, and shelter from the wind make for perfect conditions in the valley. Ekaterina Elbatal offers rose tours here.
The damask rose has a very high concentration of essential rose oil. That makes it one of the world's most sought-after rose varieties. This ragged little rose ensures that this aroma can travel around the world. The special thing about the damask rose is that the concentration of essential oils is highest in the early morning. The higher the sun rises, the thicker the coating of wax on its petals, and the more the essential oils decrease. That means you have to be out in the fields very early in the morning to harvest it, with the maximum content of essential oils.
The precious oil serves as the base for many fine perfumes. Bulgaria is the biggest producer of rose oil, responsible for about 70% of total world production. Ekaterina Elbatal takes her groups into the fields as guest harvest hands.
The rose's fragrance has such a lightness, a freshness to it, especially early in the morning here. It's really special when you breathe in this sweet aroma while you're out picking them.
The highlight of the rose blossom harvest is the 3-day festival in June. The tradition dates back over 100 years and now draws tourists from around the world, in particular from China.
Chinese people like flower, so the tulip from Holland, or the lavender from Provence, and the rose from Bulgaria. Yeah, rose in China also means love.
Every year, a new rose queen is chosen.
This is my favorite festival because it is domestic. For me, it is connecting with our labor, kind of living ages yet, and also so many beauty and our friends from all over the world.
Crowns of roses and countless products made of rose oil are on sale everywhere at the festival. Distilleries extract the essences. It takes over 3 tons of petals to make 1 litre of rose oil. At one time, merchants traded rose oil for its equal weight in gold. Now the price for 1 litre can reach €10,000. The finished oil is kept in a vault. Georgios Papahatsis makes exclusive perfumes in Athens. The oil of the damask rose is his preferred ingredient.
What makes the damask rose the very finest for producing fragrances, what makes it the golden elixir, is the softness and tranquility. It's the serenity and feeling of sophisticated luxury it exudes, like only the damask rose can do.
The damask rose, Bulgaria's fragrant gold.
Have you ever seen a jellyfish? These ocean dwellers are made up of 98% water. Although some jellyfish can give you a nasty sting, most of them are harmless. And with their unique beauty, they have a special charm. Jellyfish inspired Danish glass artist Stefan Dam to create mesmerizing works of art. And they are snapped up by art collectors all over the world.
They look like real sea creatures that have been conserved in glass, but these magical beings were specially made out of glass and sell for up to 100,000 euros apiece. They're the creations of award-winning glass artist Stefan Dam, who views them as souvenirs from an imaginary trip to the 16th century. Back then, wealthy travelers collected strange and rare objects in cabinets of curiosities.
I'm making objects that are not of this world, but you can take them up and you can handle them and you can inspect them and you can be... I get puzzled from looking at them because this is close to nature, but there's something wrong.
For 3 decades, Denmark's #1 glassblower has been making delicate artworks out of glass. He's developed his special technique over the years, partly by chance.
That's a long line of accidents. We wanted to have a silverish layer, and sometimes that did not happen, and we got this miscoloration. In this case, that is a very good thing to have.
Every day, Stefan Dam relaxes by the sea. As often as he can, he goes diving and finds inspiration in the underwater world.
There's this noiseless, strange world below the surface, which is... I really like it. It's moving, and you can move along with it. That's so interesting, and completely different from up in the air where our senses operate normally.
Rather than replicating nature, he creates imaginary nature-like beings. The more delicate they are, the tougher they are to craft.
These little lines we're going to draw with a piece of aluminium. With this little piece of aluminium, we can actually draw on the glass. And once this is covered in glass, these little lines will boil and form very elegant little lines.
His wife, Mika Karlslund, helps him perform several steps. Normally, Stefan creates his objects during the glass blowing process, but his latest project requires advanced planning: the renovation of the washrooms at Ebeltoft Glass Museum. Ebeltoft, known as Denmark's glass capital with just 7,000 residents, boasts 6 glass-blowing workshops. And its glass museum houses one of the world's biggest collections of contemporary glass art. All of the objects are on loan. Stefan Dam's sanitary masterpiece will be the museum's first purchased artwork. It will cost some 75,000 euros. Director Dan Mulgaard is happy to have found just the right artist for the job.
The task of making a toilet into a, let's call it Gesamtkunstwerk or something like that, not everybody would find that interesting or relevant. But Stefan immediately said, yeah, it's a good idea. Why don't we do it? It needs a particular mindset to find this task interesting at all.
It is a special project because my main interesting point is the Wunderkammer. And this is kind of a little Wunderkammer.
So for this project too, Stefan Dam will create the mystical glass creatures he's become famous for. Each piece is unique and takes several days to complete, in part because the glass needs to cool before he can proceed to the next step. Ultimately, the Danish artist produces works which he hopes will become part of people's own private chambers of curiosities.
In our series, Planet Berlin, we introduce you to people from all around the world who run businesses, restaurants, or even museums here. You can discover more about them on our website. In today's episode, we meet a German who is fascinated by what goes on below the surface. And if you ever come to Berlin, you might even be able to join one of his guided tours.
Dietmar Arnold has been exploring underground Berlin for 2 decades. He co-founded the Berliner Unterwelten Association in 1997. Around 8 metres below the surface, Arnold and his team have spent years clearing tens of thousands of cubic metres of rubble. Now visitors can explore a former brewery cellar and an escape tunnel. Arnold got inspired to explore Berlin's underground in Paris.
When I was studying urban regional planning in 1988, I got to know some Parisian urban planners. That's how I met a bunch of people who explore Parisian catacombs. There were 3 rival groups. I helped one carry out measurements and accompanied them for 2 days. That got me hooked. When I returned to Berlin, I told myself I had to find out what lies below Berlin.
This newly built entrance leads to an escape tunnel that was secretly dug to help 17 East German citizens flee to West Berlin. It had almost been completed, but was discovered before it could be used. Klaus Köppen from West Berlin helped dig the tunnel. He wanted to smuggle his pregnant wife out of East Berlin.
This is the original tunnel from 1970-1971. It's the only one preserved in its original state from the time when Berlin was divided.
The tunnel digger's various original tools are on display too. At street level, stones mark the location of the tunnel, running under where the Berlin Wall once stood. The wall had a tremendous impact on Dietmar Arnold's life too. His friends in the East were no longer able to visit him. Arnold was born in West Berlin in 1964. Later, as a student, he moved to a flat near the Berlin Wall.
When friends, acquaintances, or relatives from West Germany came to visit, I never took them to the Brandenburg Gate. Instead, I take them to Bernauer Straße. There were wooden platforms on all major crossings on the western side. They were so tall, you could see a long way into East Berlin.
His favourite bar, Beer Michel, is nearby. Arnold has played the accordion since his teens. 1920s songs are his favourites.
I'm a real Berliner, if you want to put it that way. I'm really happy that young people are also enjoying this music. And some of the 1920s lyrics remain very timely. Some even know them and can sing along. That's why I'm doing what I can to keep this culture alive. And traditional Berlin pubs must never disappear either.
Arnold says he will do everything to keep clearing out historic underground sites. He recently discovered this well from 1863. It used to belong to a brewery and still contains water.
Berlin is brimming with 20th century history. From the Weimar Republic, the Nazi period, the post-war era, the wall, and then reunification, we've experienced it all. Berlin is great for learning about German history.
And not just above, but under the surface, thanks to Dietmar Arnold and his team.
A city tour on all fours. Gabi, hobby eating. Mew, hobby cuddling. Isa, hobby grumbling. Annika, Job Leash Holder. Together, they're the Paw Squad Berlin, the series with Berliner Bite. On Facebook.com/DW Euromaxx.
Star chef Wojciech Modest Amaro has really put his native Poland on the culinary map. Back in 2013, his restaurant was the first one in the country ever to receive a Michelin star. His secret to success lies in his ability to give traditional Polish dishes an exciting modern touch. We met up with him at his award-winning Atelier Amaro in the Polish capital, Warsaw.
A couple of finishing touches and the saddle of venison with blackcurrant leaves is ready. This classic Polish dish dates back to the 17th century. Star chef Wojciech Modest Amaro is giving it a new twist.
A bit far away from the old days recipe, but this is the power of deconstruction with using the advantage of nowadays approach and creative thinking.
Amaro plans his menu by the week, drawing on his catalog of ingredients in season at the time. If something is not in season, it's not on the menu. The chef picks up the blackcurrant leaves for his recipe from a local organic farm. He doesn't use the berries themselves. Many Polish restaurants serve this dish in autumn and winter. Amaro is breaking with tradition.
We're not using venison in the autumn, in the winter, but there is a hunting season opening from 11th of May when we can actually hunt for raw back of the venison. And as you can see, there is no single sign of blackcurrant fruit yet, but the leaves are actually much better. They carry lots of flavor, lots of aroma. So we're gonna serve the venison with the leaves. So it's gonna be a fantastic new version of the old classic recipe.
Back in the kitchen, Wojciech Modest Amaro and his team of 10 cooks put the ideas into practice. To give the meat the desired flavor, he coats it with wild honey and salt, and then immerses it for several days in beeswax. The venison is served with wild peas cooked with forest herbs and young spruce shoots, as well as morels, a favorite edible mushroom. Before the meat is cooked, it's removed from the beeswax and very briefly sautéed in butter. Then Amaro garnishes the dish with the blackcurrant leaves.
In a book that covers century of Polish cuisine, it says that the loin has to be cooked, baked almost for an hour. And also it says it's being served with the sauce that is made of blackcurrant. A little bit of sugar in a pot, a little bit of red wine, and just poured over the meat. So this was the traditional recipe, very simple. We used the same ingredients, we can say, but we mixed some techniques that just develop and look after the product more carefully.
Wojciech Modest Amaro serves a choice of 9 courses in his restaurant. He calls them 9 moments, taking inspiration from forest themes.
Polish cuisine is very much rooted to the forest. We have the only primal forest in Europe, Puszcza Białowieża, the national park. So there are lots of ingredients, over 1,000 types of mushrooms, a kingdom of wild herbs, flowers, edible berries from the forest as well. So a great source of ingredients for us chefs.
And Wojciech Modest Amaro chooses from it every week to create dishes with surprising tastes and looks. his recipe for success.
And that's all we have time for today. But don't forget to visit our website. There you can find lots more about the show and all the details for our viewers' draw. Hope to see you again soon. Until then, take care and bye-bye.